Well, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Was kind of waiting the last couple of days for news to come out about the New York Giants' new defensive coordinator, being that I knew it was inevitable, and also thinking it's probably a little bit premature to talk about what the New York Giants are going to end up doing this offseason, specifically in the draft, until we know what their philosophies are going to be on either side of the football. Both the offensive coordinator and defense coordinator have now been hired. And the first thing I'll say with the inevitable hiring of Don Wink Martindale, I don't think it's official yet, but it's being reported by every insider that it's going to happen. And we'll talk about it in this video. The New York Giants defense, for all the people out there that complain that the New York Giants were too passive, they weren't aggressive enough, it is going to be the complete opposite. And a lot of you may say we're too aggressive under a guy like Don Wink Martindale, which is ultimately why he ended up probably getting fired this year with the Baltimore Ravens. We'll jump into all of it in this video, but definitely had a lot of success there and was on my short list of guys that I wanted the New York Giants to bring in as the DC. He's been very accomplished during his tenure there with the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens decided to move on. We'll talk about it in this video as to why Baltimore ultimately ended up deciding to do that. But regardless, outside of Fangio, who I thought was the best potential candidate, I thought Don Wink Martindale was a close second. He's done a great job, and you knew that the New York Giants and Wink had a little bit of a chemistry thing there, right? Because 2 years ago, the Giants brought in Don Wink Martindale to hire for the head coaching spot, and I remember that Wink was one of the favorites, and he was actually very upset when he didn't end up getting that job. So now he gets to come to the Giants to be a defensive coordinator after the Baltimore Ravens moved on. The first thing I'm going to say in terms of the offseason and the draft, the hiring of Don Wink Martindale leads at least me to believe that the Giants are going to focus heavily in the secondary. You look what the Buffalo Bills did. That's how they built their defense initially. Never had any supreme pass rushers. You look at what the Baltimore Ravens did with Don Wink Martindale. They had a lot of good pass rushers, but they let them go, and they strengthened the secondary even more so, and we'll get into all the specifics in this video. The Giants are going to be aggressive. They're going to blitz. But in order to do that, you have to be able to cover. The Giants are going to be losing Jabril Peppers. There's at least a decent chance they're going to be losing James Bradberry due to the salary cap implications. Joe Schoen has come out and said that he wants to shave $40 million off the cap. He also doesn't want to kick the can down the road. Well, what does that tell me? That tells me he's not looking to restructure deals. You tell me a way that the New York Giants could get to $40 million without restructuring contracts, without cutting James Bradberry. Bradberry saves them $12 million, and even if they find a way to keep Bradberry, I don't expect him to be the long-term answer there at the cornerback spot. He's approaching 30. He was drafted by Dave Gettleman. He was brought in by Gettleman. He's not a Shane guy. I think the Giants are going to look to get young at that cornerback spot, and the hiring of Don Wink Martindale leads me to believe the secondary could be in play in the first round for the New York Giants. I'll be doing my first mock draft next week after the Super Bowl, probably Monday, the day after. That's usually when I do it. And I'll be doing a full first-round mock draft, and I'm not sure who I'm going to take quite yet, but I definitely could be leaning secondary with one of those two picks. Of course, we have to focus heavily on the offensive line, and there's other needs on this team, such as edge rusher, coverage linebacker, tight end, several other things. But I think the New York Giants are going to prioritize having a very strong secondary because they're going to need it with a defensive coordinator like Don Wink Martindale. But let's jump into all the specifics in this video. This coming out from Ian Rappaport. The Giants are planning to hire former defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale. So it's not official. Like I said, all the insiders are reporting it. I think they're just working on the contract. As their new DC sources say, he was their top outside candidate choice. And with Patrick Graham going to the Raiders, Martindale steps in for the New York Giants. Now I'm going to try to be as fair as I can in this video. I'm not going to be ultraly excited. I am excited because he was one of the guys that I wanted. But think back to when we hired James Bettcher. People were saying the same thing. So we need the pieces in place. James Bettcher with the Arizona Cardinals was widely successful. He basically, invented the money back role, or at least was, widely responsible for it in terms of the way that he used his players there with the Arizona Cardinals. Was very aggressive with his defense, had a lot of success, came over to the New York Giants, and things did not work out. The major reason being, we didn't have the pieces in place. The New York Giants completely gutted the roster. Bettcher didn't have the corners to be able to run the scheme that he wanted to in order to be aggressive as he was with the Arizona Cardinals. So to make Wink successful, the Giants need the pieces. After several productive conversations, Don and I have agreed to move forward. This coming out from Harbaugh when they decided to move on from him in different directions. Harbaugh said in a statement, "We have had a great run on defense, and I am very proud of what has been accomplished through the work he's done. Don has been a major contributor to the success of our defense since 2012, and especially since he became a defensive coordinator 4 years ago. He's done a great job Now it's time to pursue other opportunities. Sometimes the moment comes and it's the right time. I am personally grateful for our friendship and everything he has done in Baltimore. And I believe the different direction he was referring to, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's accurate. The Baltimore Ravens actually told Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, a guy that they should hire as their DC. He went over there, did a really good job, and now John Harbaugh is snatching him back at the NFL level and making him the defensive coordinator. So this may be more of a circumstance of them looking at a guy that they think is more of a long-term answer at the defensive coordinator spot, and they wanted nobody to pick him up, than thinking that Don Wink Martindale was absolutely horrible. At the end of the day, the Baltimore Ravens ranked 7th or better in defense his first 3 years there. This year, they ranked 24th, but a major reason was they were missing their entire secondary, which is what you need for a guy like Don. Wink does a great job of spinning the dial. This was Joe Judge talking about Don Wink Martindale leading up to their matchup in 2020, in which the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, sacked Daniel Jones 6 times. Judge said Wednesday, he manages to have a lot of combinations of blitzes and pressures throughout the game. Everyone gets a swing of the bat, as we say with them. It's corners, it's safeties, it's nickels, it's linebackers. It's one at a time, it's two at a time. It's all of them coming. They'll play cover 0 and they'll drop it to max coverage and change it up on you. So what does that tell you? The Baltimore Ravens under Don Wink Martindale were completely unpredictable. They'd show you several different looks, and they'd come with several different types of blitzes or not blitz at all, like Joe Judge was saying, to keep the offense on their heels. And we'll see if he's able to accomplish that with the New York Giants. In terms of Don Wink Martindale's resume, in terms of being a coach throughout the college ranks and the NFL ranks, he was with Notre Dame as an assistant, went to Cincinnati, then Western Illinois, Western Kentucky, before entering the NFL in 2004 as a linebackers coach for the Raiders from 2004 to 8. Went to the Denver Broncos in the same role in 2009, then became their DC for 1 year. My guess is they probably had a head coaching change, moved on. Went to the Ravens after taking 1 year off. From 2012 to 2017 was a linebackers coach, then became the defensive coordinator 2018 to 2021. Now will be brought on to be the New York Giants DC. This is Don talking about his overall defense. I have an aggressive personality in calling the game, sometimes too aggressive. Martindale said when he took over as coordinator last year, I'm usually the one who wants to blitz even more. So we both have the same problem, Ravens coach John Harbaugh said in a conference call with the Buffalo media. So that was Don Wink Martindale basically telling you, expect me to be aggressive, expect me to blitz. And a lot of Giants fans this year, I know, because on my channel, a lot of people would complain about it, thought that Patrick Graham was too passive. He's going to be the opposite of that. This was the blitz frequency for the Baltimore Ravens, and I believe it was the highest blitz frequency in over a 10-year sample size. This coming out from PFF in 2019. The Baltimore Ravens, despite having the 27th pass rushing grade in terms of, I guess, their players' talent level, ranked 7th in blitz frequency, and I guess it's 7th in terms of effectiveness of getting after the quarterback because they blitzed this high. They blitzed 55% of the time in 2019. The second closest was the Tampa Bay Bucks at 44%. Don Wink Martindale was number 1 in overall blitz frequency in 2018, 2019, and 2020. This past year he was 6th, probably due to the fact that the secondary was a little bit banged up. This was in a PFF article talking about the overall secondary and how Don Wink Martindale was revolutionizing the defensive side of the football. Built through the secondary, the 2019 offseason saw the Ravens lose edge rushers Zadarius Smith and Terrell Suggs. They also later parted ways with other good edge rushers, and that's been their motto since he's been there. In free agency, a pair that combined for 119 total pressures and good for 35% of Baltimore's 2018 team total. They also let linebacker C.J. Mosley walk for a big contract with the New York Jets, and it looked like a gutted front seven would be the Ravens' biggest question mark heading into the 2019 season. Well, the Ravens allowed their productive pass rushers to hit the open market. PFF's research and development team was finalizing their thoughts on the actual value of pass rushers, especially when compared to coverage players. Depending how much you were taught that football won in the trenches, the result may have been counterintuitive, as strength on the back end proved to be more valuable than getting after the quarterback, and the Ravens' team-building effort appeared to be following a similar blueprint. Listen, I'm not saying I entirely agree with this. I think football is still won in the trenches. I think you still need to be able to get after the quarterback. However, I do think there's different methods to be able to do that. You look at the New England Patriots, they've never really had a great edge rusher, but they've always consistently had one of the better defenses. Reason being, scheme and having very good coverage. You could say the same thing about the Buffalo Bills. You could say the same thing about a team like the Baltimore Ravens. And when you run a 3-4 defensive scheme as aggressive as this, you have to be strong in coverage. Let's jump into the last and final thing that I wanted to show you guys. Instead of replacing Suggs and Smith up front, the Ravens made free safety Earl Thomas the key offseason signing, adding to a plethora of riches in the secondary and prompting us to declare the Ravens as the best secondary in the NFL heading into the season. That unit got even better with the midseason acquisition of cornerback Marcus Peters, who is known for his ability to create turnovers despite giving up his fair share of yardage in coverage. The pass rush group did not get the same glowing remarks, ranking 25th in the preseason ranks, as its question marks were hardly answered during the offseason. So what this leads me to believe is, one, we're absolutely going to be much more aggressive this year under a guy like Don Wink Martindale. Two, I don't necessarily expect the New York Giants in the draft, at least in the first round, to prioritize drafting an edge rusher. That's not to say they won't. If they're absolutely in love with the prospect, they absolutely could. But I think the New York Giants are going to focus strongly on that secondary. That's what both the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens did. And I know a lot of New York Giants fans watching this video may be rolling their eyes and say, well, we focused on the secondary a ton over the last couple of years. But you got to realize the guys that are currently in there were not Joe Schoen guys. Some of these pieces, guys like Aaron Robinson, guys like Adoree Jackson will be here at least for a couple more years, hopefully. Could be good pieces for this team long term. You're also going to be losing Logan Ryan after next year. There's not a lot of long-term answers currently in that secondary. The only one that is for sure is Xavier McKinney. And we'll see what the New York Giants prioritize in the early rounds of this year's draft. We're not going to have a lot of money to spend in free agency. So I don't expect the New York Giants to bring in a lot of primetime options that route. It's going to be in the draft where the New York Giants are going to have to hit home. And we have a lot of holes to fill. I'm still a line guy. Don't get it twisted. But I do think bringing in a guy like Don Wink Martindale, the New York Giants will have to focus strongly on improving that secondary, both in the near and long term for the New York Giants. I'm excited to have Wink here. He brings an unpredictable approach. We're going to be ultra aggressive. I'm not going to act like it's a sure thing to work out, though. A lot of Giants fans were happy when we brought in James Betcher. You know, when you put on the glasses, you know, the Monday morning quarterback goggles, you may say to yourself, he was horrible. I never wanted him. He had a lot of success with the Arizona Cardinals. When he got here, we didn't have the pieces in that secondary to be able to get the most out of his defensive scheme. I only hope that won't be the case with Don Wink Martindale. But I'm excited that he's with the New York Giants, and I'm excited to see the different defensive approach for the Giants that will be in 2022. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.